Start identifying all your parts for the coupling. The green one. This is the electric line or the electric wire that powers the lights on the trailer. So I got to make sure that it's securely mounted front and back first of all. And then inspect the condition. Looking for rips, tears, splices, cuts, burnt wires, taped up wires, any damage to the insulation. Make sure that they're not rubbing or getting hung up on anything that would rip them off. On this end, don't worry about this connector. This is the one you want to check over here. Tell them, look, this front one is the truck electric connector. And the other one is a trailer electric connector. Guys, like I said, try to keep the circle open a little bit so everybody can kind of get in and out. But you got the truck electric connector on the front and the trailer electric connector on the back. You do not have to separate them. Just say, look, on the front or on both, I got to make sure that both of them are securely mounted with the screws, the nuts and the bolts holding all the parts together, that neither one of them is coming loose. Also that they are securely mounted to each other, you know, that it's plugged in all the way. Condition wise, got to make sure that neither one of the two is cracked or broken. On the truck side, I got to look inside the hose to make sure they're clean of debris. On the trailer side, I got to make sure none of the pins are missing or cracked or broken or rusted or corroded. So again, we have that good connection between the two. This cap right here, it is a locking cap. It has that clip right there that locks the two together. So I'll make sure that that's locking and holding the two together. Electric line, truck electric connector, and trailer electric connector. 3 parts. Next, I'm gonna check the air hoses now. Got 2. I'm gonna check the same thing on both. Identify them. The red one is the emergency air hose. The blue is the service air hose. Front and back, they got fittings here, 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 and here. I'll start with the fittings first, making sure they're not loose, so we don't have the air leaking from the fittings. And then the condition of the hose, I'll check them for abrasions, bulges, cuts, and listen that no air is leaking when it's running through the hoses. On the end of the hoses, right here, these are the glad hands. There is 4. I got 2 for the truck, this one, and 2 for the trailer, this one and this one. So again, identify the parts. I'll make sure that everything is securely mounted with the bolts, the nuts, to each other again. Condition, check that neither one of them is cracked or broken, that I don't hear air leaking from them anywhere. Each glad hand does have its own rubber seal inside here and inside here. And I just got to make sure that those seals are not ripped or torn, so no air is leaking from, again, when the air is running through them as well.
Trailer connector, you said?
The truck electric connector.
Truck electric connector.
And the trailer electric
Trailer.
connector. No, this one. Right here, they're together. This one's plugging into this one. Pull it out. The one in your hand is the one that belongs to the truck. And as you can see, this is the one that belongs to the trailer.
The trailer got the pins.
The trailer got the pins. Look inside. Easy to pick. Alright. All the way in. Cap locks them together.
Glad hands.
Glad hands. Same thing. Truck on the front, trailer on the back. So just identify everything. Give them the explanation and tell them, and now I'm just going to continue with the rest of the coupling devices down here. Everything down here. This right here that I'm tapping, this is it's just a metal plate, guys. But that is called the apron. That is the apron of the trailer. If you look at that, if you look around the edges, all the way around it, you can see that that plate is welded to the bottom of the trailer. So we don't have nuts and bolts to inspect now. Now we're checking the nuts and the welds over here. So tell them I'm going to make sure that the apron is welded to the bottom of the trailer and then none of the welds are cracked or broken anywhere. I'm also going to make sure that the apron is nice and flat so it can slide on and off of the truck easily, that it's not cracked or bent or broken anywhere. I'm also going to make sure that it's full of grease, because that grease is going to help it slide on and off and also prevent any friction between the two. Right below it, this one, this is the fifth wheel skid plate. If you look on the sides, those are the pins and the nuts and the bolts that are securing the fifth wheel. So I'm going to start with those first, making sure again it's not loose. As far as the condition, Same thing. Check that nothing is cracked or bent or broken anywhere, that everything is operating correctly on the fifth wheel skid plate. Also make sure that that's full of grease to help sliding, but also help turn it right and left. And tell them that you are going to make sure that you look in between the apron and the fifth wheel skid plate, all around the edge right here, to make sure that there is no gap in between the two. Because as you can see, it's flat, one on top of the other, and that's the way that it should be every time. If you ever look in there and you see a gap like this where they're not meeting each other, that means that something is wrong. When you hooked it up, maybe the kingpin landed on top of the locking jaws instead of inside the locking jaws, and that's why it's sitting on top, and that's why that would create that gap in between the two. And it might be locked up for a second, but as soon as you take off, first bump you hit is going to bounce off. So that's why you always make sure that you don't ever see a gap in between the two right there. And just tell them that I'm going to look to make sure there's no gap. Right here on the side, this is the release arm, and it does exactly what the name says, which is release the trailer if you pull it. So I don't want to pull it out. What I want to do is I want to come over here and make sure that it's pushed in all the way. Because when it's pushed in all the way, that means that it's in the lock position. And that's what I want to come over here and inspect and check, you know. Just like everything else, it does have pins, nuts, bolts securing it, condition, nothing should be cracked or broken on that. The safety latch is what's keeping all this locked together. And that consists of all these springs and all these levers down here. So this is the release arm, and all these springs and levers down here is the safety latch that's securing everything. So I gotta make sure none of those parts are broken or loose or coming apart. These humps you see on the side right here, these are your platforms. These are the ones that secure the fifth wheel to the frame. So we got to make sure that these platforms are securely mounted, not cracked or broken. And if you check in those, you can see that they have all these nuts and bolts all the way around it, right? But here, you don't just want to call them the nuts and the bolts. If you look at your parts list, those are called your mounting bolts. So make sure you call them the mounting bolts. If you just say the nuts and the bolts, you're not going to get credit. You have to identify them as a mounting bolt securing the platforms in place. And then none of those should be missing or broken. So we don't have anything loose, so nothing is jerking back and forth. Once you identify everything here, you got to come around the back. Since you're already down there, if you don't mind, point at your locking jaw. Down there, get inside there where he's at. Point in there and identify the locking jaws. Just tell them, look, these are the locking jaws, and if you look inside the locking jaws, you'll see the kingpin that comes straight down from the trailer apron. So just identify them. The locking jaws, the explanation, hey, look, I gotta make sure they're securely mounted, check they're not cracked or broken, make sure they're full of grease so they can open and close easily. Most important, that they are wrapped around the kingpin, securing the trailer in place so it don't fall off. Thank you. And the kingpin, well, that one is welded to the apron. So I'm just gonna check the weld around the kingpin, that it's not cracked, so the kingpin's not coming loose, and make sure that it's straight up and down like this so it can slide all the way into the fifth wheel so the locking jaws can grab it and secure it. And that's what you gotta check there, locking jaws and the kingpin. The only thing left for you to tell them here is, hey, look, there's two types of sliding fifth wheels. Two types of fifth wheels, the ones that slide and the ones that don't slide. This one does not slide. It does not have pins or grooves to adjust it forward or back for me to inspect. As far as the clearance, I should always make sure I got enough clearance in between my truck and my trailer here, and also right there in between the cab and the front of the trailer. So when I turn, I don't wreck my truck into my own trailer. And that would cover all your coupling devices. Once you are done with coupling devices, since we already did the rear, well, now you just jump onto the trailer right here. It says trailer components on the front. There's only one thing on the front, guys. It's this headboard. And it's welded again, so tell them you're going to check the welds, that it's not cracked or broken, because this headboard is what secures the load from sliding forward, damaging anything on your coupling devices or your truck over here. And then after that, it says check the side lights and reflectors, which you can see all the way up and down the trailer right here. Same thing on the reflectors, if they're not peeling, missing big chunk, clean. As far as the lights, tell them these are marking lights that only have one function, I'll make sure they're securely mounted like every other light, not cracked or broken, no moisture. As far as the colors, you can see that the correct colors are amber,